Well, we're in week 3 of the war, and I'm sure Mark Levin hasn't had to refill his Viagra yet.
Well, I'm not going to leave you alone. I want you to get mad.
Let's go ahead and jump into DeLorean and Marty McFly this bitch because this shit didn't just happen yesterday. It's been decades of political pressure and maneuvering that's led us here. Christ, Netanyahu, you know what? I'm just going to call him BB. It's kind of cute and funny, right? So, BB has said he's been dreaming of this moment, bombing Iran, for 40 years. 40 years. That's a long time to have a hard on for blowing up a country. But it gets better because in the last year of those 40 years, he's made 7 trips to the White House. 7. Now, what do you think that was for? Well, it was to push us to join him in this weird 40-year-old wet dream, of course. He was more pushy and aggressive than Anthony Weiner in a teen chat room. Now, Bibi, on behalf of Israel, has built this myth around Iran as an unbearable existential threat that's been on the verge of nuclear weapons for 5 decades. 5 decades, really? That's like the longest dry hump session in geopolitical history. And in the end, Israel had a raging case.
Blue balls in your heart.
And you know what? Another thing, didn't we just bomb the shit out of their nuclear capabilities a few months ago? So let me get this straight. It took them 50 years to almost get a bomb, and then we blow it up, and then immediately they're right back where they started? Really? I'm supposed to believe that? You're supposed to believe that? But it's not just BB. There's a whole ecosystem of media and political personalities shaping this narrative that we must back Israel at all cost. They lullaby the public into a glitched out comatose state, so they lead us blindly into war.
Okay, Mitch.
Jesus H. Christ, people. Term limits. For fuck's sake. Anyway, Mark Levin told his audience Iran had nuclear weapons that could reach New York or Miami. Ted Cruz constantly uses biblical framing and prophecy language to justify U.S. support for Israel. The whole lot of them frame this as if it's gospel and an American Christian duty. Bullshit. All of this is meant to soften us to the idea of conflict, conditioning us like children to go along with whatever our leaders decide is best for us, or better yet, best for Israel. And here's where it all kind of snaps into place. We've been conditioned to treat Israel's interest as automatically America's interest, and they're not. Once you see that, the rest becomes obvious. It's what pulls us into conflicts that don't serve us. Israel's goal has long been strategic dominance in the region, and Iran has just stood in the way of that. Now, follow me here. Iran is the hot girl's ugly, fat, dirty friend who is cock blocking you at the bar. Go ahead and get her a bucket of wings and she backs off. Iran is that friend, and our bucket of bombs just made the path easier for Israel. Now, here's the fucked up thing though, Iran isn't even the end of the line. Israel's already warming up the next regional threat in the bullpen, Turkey.
A new Turkish threat is emerging.
And why? Because Turkey's economy, military, and influence in the Muslim world has grown in ways Israel can't control. And when Israel can't control something, magically it becomes a security concern. Funny how that works, right? Now, soon you'll start seeing the same script. Turkey is unstable. Turkey is aggressive. Turkey is a danger to the region. All the greatest hits. It'll be like our Iran 2.0, just with better beaches and a functional tourism industry. And this isn't the first time this pattern is played out. When the US got involved in Syria, Libya, and Iraq, those conflicts shifted power to Israel's favor. Now, with Iran's leadership gone, Israel can push its influence even further. And like I mentioned earlier, Turkey's already being groomed as the next aggressor in this geopolitical terrorist pageant. Now, what does America gain? Well, here's the uncomfortable truth, people. Not much. In fact, this whole thing puts our actual allies in the Gulf at risk. Countries like Saudi Arabia, UAE, Qatar, they don't want this chaos. Why would they? Poor Chris Hemsworth and the other elites won't have any place to escape to. No, of course, these countries want stability, trade, and money flowing. They've already criticized Israel's actions because destabilization screws up their economies, their security, and their entire regional strategy. These are all the countries we rely on for energy markets, counterterrorism, cooperation, and regional balance. You know, the good allies, not like a certain ally that puts us through the ringer any chance they get. And this war threatens all of that. A power vacuum in Iran doesn't make the Middle East safer, it makes it more volatile. And volatility is one thing the Gulf states can't afford. And if you follow the pattern, you can see where this might go next. The Gulf states, Saudi, UAE, Qatar, they're stability focused, wealthy, and independent. That alone makes them inconvenient for Israel's long term regional dominance. So don't be surprised if, in a few years from now, you start hearing the same security concern language pointed in their direction, too. But hey, that savage, satanic, evil, goat fucking piece of shit Ayatollah is gone, so it's not a total net negative.
Wow, winning. That's how you perceive it.
Here at home, thanks to Biden's border non control, there are concerns these savages are here waiting for the terror phone to ring and go start some horrendous shit over here. None of this helps America. Now, this next part shows how the pressure works in real time. When Bibi said, "We're going either with or without you," Trump just said, why didn't he say no? Well, because that option isn't really on the table. Saying no risks serious fallout, threatening American interest, American personnel, and Middle East stability. But wait, could there maybe be a unicorn option? Maybe an option more elusive than John Thune's backbone, telling Israel, nah, fuck off. This isn't any of our interest. Then withdrawing aid and letting them stand on their own 2 feet. Why don't we ever do that? Well, maybe because the last president who pushed back was Kennedy, and things didn't end too well for him. Now, I'm not saying that Israel had any involvement in Kennedy's assassination. That would be crazy, right? But it is quite the coincidence, isn't it? And most presidents got the message like they were Sonny getting the fish wrapped in newspaper. Don't fuck with Israel.
That's a Sicilian message.
To me, Israel is like that asshole friend who always stirs trouble when you go out drinking. Always starting fights, and then when things get ugly, you end up having to defend him while he goes off and hides somewhere. We don't share the same goals or interests as them, but they might be fun to hang out with sometimes. However, our paths are completely different. So, if this pressure ecosystem sounds like a shadowy force pulling the strings, recent developments have pulled back the curtain further. And what we're seeing is about as subtle as this guy's toupee. This isn't an exaggeration. For instance, let's look at the light Joe Kent is shining on all of this. He's exposed how President Trump was under enormous pressure from pro Israel forces. Pressure that wasn't just political posturing, but a real intense push to shape America's actions. This isn't just speculation anymore. It validates the idea that there's a powerful ecosystem at work behind the scenes. And this is where the whole thing fractures. Let's talk about Tucker Carlson's investigation. His alleged communications with Iranian officials have plunged the political right into chaos, exposing a fractured narrative and a breakdown in what should be straightforward messaging. When pressure and panic drive the conversation, things get messy. And that mess shows how unstable and weaponized the media environment has become. Now, you put this all together, and the picture becomes more unavoidable than a liberal white woman grandstanding on TikTok.
My name's Jen, and I am fuming.
Hence, revelations, Carlson's investigation, the political fractures, they shine a spotlight on how panic and pressure distort messaging and decision making at the highest levels. They deepen divisions, confuse the public, and make it even harder to see what's really going on. Understanding this escalation is crucial because it's not just about the war itself, it's about the forces controlling the story and shaping our future. And here's where I'm at now with all of this. I'm not saying the US is just some janitor waiting around to clean up Israel's mess and then go back to waiting for the next regional threat. We did gain some real consequential benefits from this lopsided relationship in this war, starting with the Ayatollah being bombed back to the fresh hell he came from. I'm going to be honest about my own reaction when this war happened. Back when it all began 3 weeks ago, I was glad that terrorists were removed from the equation. But I never saw Iran as an immediate threat demanding intervention. Now, maybe it's just me being a stubborn old man who can't admit when he's wrong. While I've softened a bit, I'm still not completely convinced all of this was necessary. But even with all that, something still doesn't sit right with me. I just can't get past the decades long pressure campaign from media and politicians on the Israeli least, pushing America into this war. That said, I can support the outcome without actually endorsing the manipulation or the loss of American agency. So, what do we do with all this? If we're going to enter a war where our interests are at risk and more importantly, our soldiers' lives are on the line, I want it to be on our terms and for our benefit, not because our drunk asshole friend felt the need to start some shit that we now have to clean up. Because at the end of the day, it's all about autonomy. Our foreign policies should be made by us on our terms, not due to external pressure from foreign nations and internal pressure from the media figures and politicians that have a six-pointed star branded on their ass like cattle. We must think critically and scrutinize when figures start conflating Israel's interest with ours. And if we don't wake up to this pattern, we'll continue to be sleepwalked into these conflicts that don't serve the American interest. And people, we've all seen what sleepwalking looks like. And on that note, go ahead and spit your thoughts into the comments for a chance to be a guest on the show. If you want more beautiful nuggets like this one, do the things with the buttons like, subscribe, follow me on social media. And until next time, live unrepentant.